Vice President's visit Mechanic Village in Abuja says better days lie ahead.
The Nigerian army alerts the public of fleeing Boko Haram terrorists.
Department of State Services accused Rivers State governor of plot to disrupt governance in the FCT.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on the prospects for the creative industry in 2017.
Now, let's start with a quote by a Nigerian movie maker who says Nigeria is indeed a big market. And if 1% of Nigerians buy my DVD or watch my films in the cinema, I'll be a multimillionaire. A multimillionaire, he says. End of quote.
Now, the statement, of course, is indicative of the huge potentials in the Nigerian film business or Nollywood, which is regarded as Africa's largest movie industry and second in the entire world.
Of course, statistics show that Nigeria's annual film productions are estimated to be worth over $800 million. Private distributors have made good money in the industry, but its true commercial potentials only became clear to policymakers and big businesses in recent times.
Now, the fate is not only restricted to the film industry. Other aspects of the creative industry are also making their own waves and contributing thereby to the nation's GDP. Now, these include fashion, arts and craft, as well as the performing arts, including, of course, music. Now, information available indicates that the entertainment industry is targeting $8 billion in annual revenue by 2019.
And according to PricewaterhouseCoopers 2016 to 2020 Entertainment and Media Outlook, the Nigerian music industry will pull in an estimated revenue of $51 million from various platforms by 2017, reaching an estimated sum of about $86 million by 2020. Indeed, the Nigerian music industry is also expected to grow in, year out, till the year 2020, with the digital sales taking over at least the physical sales.
Now, the previous administration created a loan facility for the Nigerian creative and entertainment industry. And the present administration is also continuing with the offer based on the pronouncement of incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari, who has promised that his administration will improve funding of the creative industry in the 2017 budget in order to boost employment opportunities. Now, the president said the improved allocation should provide the requisite infrastructure for rapid transformation of the creative industry in the country.
And as Nigeria strives to diversify her economy and move away from over-dependence on oil, experts say the creative industry can play a role in this process and even get the country out of recession with sound policies, targeted investment, and of course global partnership. With so much hope in the creative industry to contribute to the economy, what are the prospects in this sector in 2017?
All right, now that question and others will be answered by our guests in the course of today's program. And of course, you as a viewer out there can also participate in this by taking advantage of our Twitter handle at NTAGMN. It's usually to the left side of your screen. On that note, I welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Rhoda Obo. I join Kingsley to welcome you to today's edition of the program, coming to you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest TV network, the NTA. In the course of the program, we shall bring to you our companion segments, which include the newspaper review. We've got business, we've got sports, foreign, and entertainment news. But just before then, here is the main news with Laurie Balahassan. Laurie, good morning. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Rhoda. Good morning and welcome to the news. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says Nigerians should expect the best in coming years as government at the central, states and local levels are working towards a greater country that the people can be proud of. stressing that the present economic challenge should be seen as temporary. He said this when he paid an unscheduled visit to artisans at the mechanic village along Pape Road in the Federal Capital Territory.
To deal with the Niger Delta problem, solve that problem, deal with farming, industry and all that, so that the country will make progress. There's no country that can make progress without some pain or there's no way. There must be some pain. But you see, the good thing is that this government is trying to fight corruption. Because if you don't fight corruption, the money which we're even trying to get, some people will pocket it.
And meanwhile, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has launched the Abuja digital switchover in television broadcasting. At the launch, the Vice President says this feat becomes necessary as technology is transforming human lives in new and significant ways. He believes this transition will bring job opportunities through content creation and software development.
This will provide only limited by the imagination. Advertising, formal education, sales and marketing are obvious low-hanging fruits.
The objective is not just to move customers and Nigerians from analog to digital in a simple technical sense, but to ensure a total overhaul of the whole TV watching experience and the economy around it.
The nation's capital, Abuja, becomes the second to witness digital switchover after the pilot scheme in Jos, the Plateau State capital. And the presidency has asked state governors to use at least 25% of the refunds made to them from excess deductions for external debt service to settle outstanding workers' entitlements. This is in a statement by the presidential spokesman, Garba Shehu. It said the president had approved 555.74 billion naira to be paid in batches to all states that owed. The 33 states involved are expected to receive 25% of their approved sums in the first instance before the end of this week. In a directive through the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, President Buhari said the issue of workers' benefits, particularly salary and pensions, must not be allowed to continue as a national problem and must be tackled urgently. General Secretary, National Union of Textile Garments and Tailoring Workers of Nigeria, Issa Aremu, has lauded the federal government for increasing intervention funds for the textile industry in 2017. He made the commendation at News Agency of Nigeria Forum in Abuja, where he also explained that financing had been a major challenge in the industry to enable it actualize its mandate.
The good news is that the federal government, under President Muhammad Buhari, just in line with his predecessor, have seen the need that we must revive the textile industry.
To security matters now, the Nigerian army is alerting the public on fleeing Boko Haram terrorists escaping from their hideouts due to the ongoing final clearance in Sambisa forest. The statement urged members of the public, especially residents of Adamawa, Borno and Yobe states, to be extra vigilant and security conscious of strange movements or persons in the communities. The public is also requested to report any suspicious person or group of persons to security agencies for prompt action. Inspector General of Police Ibrahim Idris has inaugurated a 15-member panel to unravel those behind the violence in the River State rerun elections that led to the death of 2 police officers and mad elections in parts of the state. Edino Justice reports that the panel was given 30 days to submit its findings.
Examine the role of any police officer or any other security agent whose actions or activities individually and collectively was detrimental to the good conduct of the election. Conduct a forensic analysis on the audio report released by Sahara reporters as it concerns the election.
And still talking security, the Department of State Services says it has uncovered a sinister plot by the River State Governor, Nyesom Wike, to disrupt machinery of governance in strategic federal government agencies by provoking a violent breach of peace in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, from this Thursday through the Yuletide season. This is in a statement issued by Tony Opuyo of the services, explaining that the governor has secured the services of one Ikenga Imo Ugo Chinyere, a personal aide to Senate President Bukola Saraki, to mobilize some hoodlums to execute their plan. The aim of the plot is to cause a mayhem, a complete breakdown of law and order, and cast security agencies and the federal government in bad light, as well as divert attention from ongoing police investigation into the violence that trailed the rerun elections in Rivers State. It says protesters are to besiege the National Human Rights Commission, INEC, National Assembly, the Army and the police headquarters, as well as British Commission, U.S. Embassy and the UN office to raise alarm that Rivers State was under siege of security agencies during the elections. As the Federal Road Safety Corps commenced its 2016 end-of-year special patrol with focus on ensuring safe arrival for travelers rather than arrest, the Corps has deployed 36,000 personnel and additional logistics to ensure a hitch-free celebration across the country. Corps Marshal Buboye Oyeyemi stated this at the media briefing for the 2016 end-of-year special patrol in Abuja.
Through corridors, we have realigned all the heavy-duty recovery vehicles to within a radius of 200 kilometers for prompt removal of any obstruction. And peradventure, there is a crash, the ambulance services will be there, and we're also getting support from sister agencies and NEMA.
And that's the news at this time. The rest of the program continues with Kingsley and Rhoda after the break. Good morning.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
One opportunity leads to many. Dial *141# to get Jobberman, Airtel One Touch, and many more without data charges. Only on Airtel.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, Ogerola. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
All right, you're welcome back. But if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, and we are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, on to business. It's Christmas Eve, and the Nigerian Stock Exchange has recorded its first gain this week. Plus, federal government provides avenue for reporting financial impropriety. Details of these stories with our correspondent, Leah Katun Babatunde.
Following the approval of the whistleblowers policy by the Federal Executive Council and its subsequent launch by the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, Numerous patriotic Nigerians have been making inquiries on how and where they could deliver information that could lead to stopping or uncovering of fraud to the appropriate authorities. In response, the Ministry of Finance has dedicated a contact telephone number for receiving SMS, a whistleblowers portal, as well as an email address through which members of the public who disclose information about a possible misconduct or violation could deliver such information for the attention of the team dedicated to process such information. The SMS number is 0909 806 7946. The portal finance.gov.ng, and email whistle@finance.gov.ng. The ministry, in a statement signed by Salisuna Inadambata, directed information encouraged all Nigerians with authentic information about violation, misconduct, or improper activity which can impact negatively on the Nigerian people and government to report through the 3 channels. The federal government has urged public servants to undergo structural adjustments in battling recession that has more than half the nation's income in the last 1 year, occasioned by a steady decline in oil prices. Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, made the admonition at a workshop for staff of the Office of the Accountant General. He said public servants must collectively act with government to find a lasting solution to the problem bedeviling the economy. The Accountant General said it was a positive stride that unions are working with government to provide a solution to the problem.
Union has a role to play. Modesty, cost effectiveness, efficiency in delivery, these are the key words. And they are the civil servants anyway. So they have a role to play, and they are playing that role.
The problem at hand in the country is the problem of all. And we must all find a solution. Gone are in those days when you be carrying placards.
The workshop titled The Civil Servant and Economic Recession aims at giving the necessary guidance to members of the service in line with present realities. And finally, the Nigerian Stock Exchange gained for the first time this week on Thursday to see the All Share Index rise by 0.18%. Now next is a graphic summary. With business news, I'm Lekatun Babatunde.
All right, thank you very much, dear Leah Katung Babatunde, for the business package. Next for us now is a review of the headlines in some of today's newspapers.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe, is here with us in the studio. Bayo, good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Rhoda. You guess what I noticed? Vehicles have thinned out of Abuja Highway. People have gone back to their nativity to celebrate Christmas. Good morning, Kinsley.
Good morning.
Good morning. That's a good observation. It's been so for the past couple of days.
Yes.
The city is less dense with vehicular traffic. Of course, it's 2 days to Christmas, and then we'll take a look at the headlines in the papers, beginning with New Telegraph. New Telegraph, let's go to the lead story, which is in the middle of the front page. Buhari to governors, that's the kicker. Pay workers' salaries with 552 billion naira refund. And has a rider, civil servants force accountant general to banks. Details of the story can be found on page 2. And in the mood of Christmas, you can see the 3 composite photographs there on the front page of the New Telegraph. Physically challenged, crossing the road after purchasing some goods that was in Lagos. Another resident of Lagos carrying on his head, lake rice, which is being subsidized by the Lagos state government, plus the other lady there with the baby strapped to her back. So all for Christmas. Now, below the nameplate of the New Telegraph, you also have a window of other headlines. We'll take a couple of them. Khan kicks against Nigeria's headship of Islamic organization. Details of that story can be found on page 5. NCC to spend 1.9 982 billion naira on travels and 3 billion naira on communication centers. That's on page 2 in greater detail. Cameroonian houseboy stabs mistress to death. That's on page 34. That took place in Lagos, by the way, in Parkview. Presidency orders probe of NFF accounts. Details on page 37. Now, above the nameplate, 2 other headlines. Budget 2017. Federal government earmarks 42.9 billion naira for State House. 123.2 million naira on foodstuff, 135 million naira on fuel and lubricants, and EFCC gets 17 billion naira allocation. Now, coming down to the second list story on the front page of New Telegraph, that's DSS. Wike and Saraki's aide plotting violent unrest. And 2 riders, Governor, I won't succumb to cheap blackmail, and IGP and Rivers inaugurate probe panels on reroll. Details of the story can be found on page 5. A strip headline, there is a story on Hearth.
All right, and we have the leadership. On the leadership, just below the nameplate first, digital switchover will boost economy, information and versatility. Digital switchover will boost economy, information, versatility. Statement there, credit to President Muhammadu Buhari. And just beside that, Unitide, cash crunch hits banks as long queues exacerbate withdrawal. That's on page 53. On page 35, CBN issues guardian's note to banks on IFRS implementation. And the big story on the leadership this Friday, Transparency International, Magus rejection and attempt to undermine anti-corruption war. Magus rejection and attempt to undermine anti-corruption war. And just below that, and that could be said to be like a second headline, Bagudu Ambode's efforts bear fruit as Lake Rice reaches markets. That's on page 8 of the leadership. And on the foot of the paper, Gotel restructuring. Chairman denies all allegations of mismanagement. That's on page 6. And saboteurs threaten development of Nigeria, Sao Tome Principe, GDA. That's on page 53 of the leadership. All right, Bayo, let's get your views on this one.
Yes, let's start with the Lake Rice. The Lake Rice is a combined effort between the Lagos State and Kebbi State, and they have rice packaged now, and it's made available for people in Lagos and everywhere for 12,000 naira. And there's a rush for that rice. And you know, Xmas is a period for rice, so people have that respite. Also, talking about salaries, the president has approved 7.18 billion to augment shortfall in wages to enable November and December salaries to be paid. You will recall that just at the beginning of this week, the Minister of Finance had explained that the IP system, which was automatic, shut down the overdrawn of salaries, and therefore people were not able to get salaries. But with the uploading of the approval of the funds that the National Assembly approved, workers are hopeful to get their salaries. In the same vein, the President has also enjoined governors in the state to spend a quarter of the remittances they have gotten from the external debt paid to them to pay workers' salary. It will also be recorded that 33 states of the Federation were granted some 300 billion in 2015. The Debt Management Office, in fact, went to the extent of also giving them debt-paying relief so that it will be a lot more easier. Also, 90 billion was given to 22 states in the beginning of this year. So all the initiatives to make sure that workers get their salary. But the biggest story of them all is the digital switch on at Abuja yesterday. It was meant for the president, but he was represented by the vice president. This came after 2 initial switchover dates of June 2012 and June 2015 had failed. But we now have a sacrosanct date of 17 June 2017. With the Abuja switch on yesterday, there are several dividends. There's now 30 free channels as a dividend. So the ordinary viewer on free channel will now enjoy facilities like you have on the pay TV. It has electronic parental guide facility, and it will also give them access to world-class content. The Abuja switchover was attained in 3 months, with the Pinnacle leading as the arrowhead. The next phase will be 1 state each in 6 of the geopolitical zones. And from today, the NBC has its work cut out for it with its DigiTeam. They have 176 days to meet the ECOWAS analog switch-off deadline of 17 June 2017. To be part of it, get your set-top box if you are in Abuja, and you'll be able to view. But if you are not able to get it, don't worry. There is a double illumination. Your analog will still give you television program, but you have to get digitized before 17 June 2017.
All right, Baya Tribe, thank you very much. Just before our next paper for review actually is The Nation. We're seeing that presently on the screen. Just talk about the lake rice. You know, the former Minister of Agriculture, Akinwumi Adesina, has a lot of credit to also take for this because he was instrumental to revitalizing rice cultivation in Kebbi State. About 2/3 of the local governments in Kebbi State actually can produce rice. And there was a lot of funding that went in during his
Talking about rice, the Minister of Health has come forward to deny that there is no plastic rice in Nigeria. So this is contradicting what the custom claimed was a plastic rice that was discovered. The Minister of Agriculture is also on record to say there is no plastic rice in Nigeria. So we need to make this clarification so that people will...
So what was the customs official, the area controller, say it was crying wolf?
Well, the tweet that came from the Minister of Health that rice has been tested and it was found to be soft and had a kind of off-white color, and it is not plastic rice.
All right, Bayan. So let's take on the Nation newspaper now for a review of other headlines. Now you can see above the nameplate of the Nation, Taraba Kogi present 284.84 billion naira 2017 budgets. That's above the nameplate. And then you also see the other headlines there. That's the lead story, by the way, just below the photograph showing the Vice President the takeoff of the Abuja rollout of the digital switchover. Xmas, that's the kicker for the Nation newspaper. Workers battle governance over salaries. And then you have the riders. Protests in Taraba, Gombe, and others. And Buhari, that's the kicker again, paid from 552 billion naira refund. That's the second rider to that headline. And then also there on the front page in reverse lettering, alleged treason. That's the kicker. Wike and DSS clash with the rider. Saraki, I won't condone lawlessness. Now, those are the headlines we're taking in the meantime from the front page of the Nation newspaper. Just also quickly, Rhoda, before you come on with the authority, let me also take the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust newspaper has also, as its lead story, the story on Xmas. Xmas, that's the kicker. Buhari approves 72 billion naira for salaries. And then you have a graphic illustration at the front page there of the environment summary of what is required to be done with it. And then you, below the nameplate, Southern Kaduna local governments to spend Christmas under curfew. That's on page 4. And Obasanjo asks Southeast elders to end agitation. Details of that story also can be found on page 7.
And the Authority newspaper just above the nameplate, you can see there, Buhari absent at Southeast Economic and Security meeting. That's on page 4. Also on page 4, selfish leaders threaten Nigeria's Sao Tome Principe joint venture. On page 47, that's sports. Federal government hasn't endorsed PINIC, says Dalong. And that's a CAPSIT. Federal government hasn't endorsed PINIC, says Dalong. That's the Minister for Sports, Youth and Sports. And the lead story on the Authority this morning, I'm ready to die in defense of democracy. I am ready to die in defense of democracy. Credited to Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike. Says Rivers people deserve award from INEC and police. And down to the foot of the paper, Christian security agents intensify preparations for Christmas. Bye.
Yes. Talking about Transparency International, the representative in Nigeria, Awalu Ibrahim Rafsanjani, has said that the Senate is trying to scuttle the war against corruption. They are referring to the refusal of the Senate to confirm the acting chairman of the Economic Financial Crime Commission. They cite incidences that the Senate also tried to amend the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act in the process when the Senate president was being tried. He said the intention is to weaken Magu's resolve to do a thorough job. The Rafsanjani, who represents Amnesty International, says that since the advent of Magu, the EFCC have been more active, they've been more professional and more assertive. And the fear is that the war against corruption is being compromised by the National Assembly. The other area of concern is, you recall the concern in southern Kaduna State. Governor Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai says that 2 military formations have been proposed for 2 local governments in Kaduna State. This will ensure the establishment of army formations so as to check criminality and ensure that there is peace. But for the purposes of this Christmas era, contingents of mobile police have been posted there, and they are to be supported by formations of the military to ensure that already there are curfew in 3 local governments in southern Kaduna, and this is to ensure that they have a peaceful Christmas and New Year celebration.
Well, Bayo, as we indeed celebrate the season, it's quite worthy of note to note that people actually need to drive very, very carefully, because this morning, I think at about 5, I just wanted to say that because vehicles are thinning out. I noticed lots of vehicles were trying to leave the city, at least it's past 5 this morning. It was quite dark, lots of vehicles trying to leave, but were driving very carelessly.
Yes, yes, it's the rush home towards Christmas, and you know, when there is a stampede, usually there's always the gridlock around the confluence state, particularly Lokoja. You know, it's a confluence of 10 states. And most people who are traveling across the country, whether they are going to towards the southeast, southwest, or to other parts of the north central, still have to pass through that place. So there's always that stampede, and people need to be very, very careful.
Really careful.
Bayo, just before we sign it off for today and indeed for the week, there were stories that we had read earlier in the week about ambassadorial postings,
yes,
indicating where the ambassadors' designates have been posted to. Now there's a rejoinder coming from the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's Ambassador Shola Edikonlaye. The story is on page 10 of the Daily Trust newspaper. The headline is no ambassadorial posting yet. That's according to the ministry. So they say they are still undergoing their induction. Yes.
I am shocked to hear that. There's already on the social media a posting naming the states of the ambassadors and the country they are posted to.
Yeah, that's right. That's that. But again, see, if you were to roll back in time to go into history, you have to ask Tunde Thompson and Nudukara about what happened in 1984. Similar story. All right, Bayo Atobi, we'd like to thank you for being with us today. We appreciate you being with us also for the week. We wish you a lovely holiday.
I think we should wish our viewers Merry Christmas now, because we don't get to meet until after Christmas.
That's correct. All right, it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We're reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be taking a look at the prospects for the creative industry in 2017.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Certainly, Ajunwa is the Olympic champion.
We did it before and we can do it again with the new strategy through the first National Grassroots Sports Festival scheduled for Abuja, Nigeria from 22nd to 29th April 2017 to prepare Nigeria to win medals in international sporting events. The world rollout is scheduled for 20th of December 2016 at the Africa International Investment Summit and Expo at Sheraton Abuja Hotel. The Save the Life Charity Golf Tournament is scheduled for 18th of December 2016 at IBB International Golf and Country Club Abuja. NTA, the largest television network in Africa, is the broadcast partner. For sponsorship, contact the Chairman Chief Coordinator on 0809 647 0111 or Mukta on 080 330 20855. Email info@grassrootssportsfestival.com. The Grassroots Sports Festival is endorsed and in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development.
right, welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Our topic for conversation this morning is the creative industry in 2017. We have a great guest in the studio this morning. But before we introduce our guest, we'd like to take this background report put together by Ngozi Chude.
Why don't we test this for
From movies, music, fashion, comedy, arts and dance, the creative industry has become a household name, giving credence to the consensus that it is the country's next lifeline and ultimately revolutionary. Living in Bondage, released over 20 years ago, saw the emergence of an industry called Nollywood.
Mommy's boy. Will this pampering continue?
Through the years, the industry has thrived, making a definite statement of success, a replication evident in all the genres. A testament to this is the fact that in 2016, the entertainment landscape recorded more achievements as many artists across board gave a true definition of an enterprising industry. From sell-out arenas in London to Los Angeles, Nigerian top comedians became headliners, so much so that one of Nigeria's highest paid comic acts, Bright Okwocha, popularly known as Basket Mouth, was honored with a special day, July 17, in the United States of America. Stand-up comedian turned movie producer Ayo Makun, better known as AY, stood among the top earners this year at the box office as his first comic movie, 30 Days in Atlanta, was recognized by the Guinness Book of Records for its outstanding sales, and his second movie, A Trip to Jamaica, breaking the box office record in Nigeria. Also, with a box office revenue of about 150 million naira, with the movie Wives on Strike, Omoni Oboli has been adjudged the most lucrative actress at the cinemas. Further, the new deal of a new sound in hip-hop and Afro-pop has given expression to top entertainers crisscrossing the length and breadth of the world, raking in millions of naira. Ayodeji Ibrahim Balogun, also known as Wizkid, readily comes to mind with 4 international awards in a month and several international collaborations. This success resonates in the nation's fashion industry, as in recent times it has turned to a money spinner, thanks to the bold and daring exploits of designers like Jola Sego, Ituan Bassey, Folake Folarin Koka, and Maya Tafu, among others. In a related one, the Nigerian fashion industry, according to reports, is worth over 2 trillion naira. Apart from this, many Nigerian brands have created an avenue for creative minds through sponsorship of events, brand endorsements, and nomination as brand ambassadors. With these success stories abounding, a growing number of youths are now finding their niche in the industry, making it to be the second highest employer in Nigeria after agriculture. This clearly shows that the opportunities created by the entertainment sector is good news for the government, as it somewhat reduces the difficulty of catering for Nigeria's large youth population, made up of more than 100 million aged below 45. Anchoring on these and with indices showing the creative industry as a competent alternative and a major revenue earner, the federal government recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the British Council and the Tony Elumelu Foundation to harness the potentials of the creative persons through training and capacity building. Before this, talks in this direction was the focus at the African Ministers of Tourism Conference in Abuja, Cote d'Ivoire, and in Madrid, Spain. 2017 will hopefully be another year for success stories. However, while many acknowledge these efforts, there were concerns about the need to address some clogs in the wheel of progress so the industry can go to greater heights.
We have a big challenge when it comes to getting the fabric that we need to do the production with. The retail is also a big problem in Nigeria, and but I think every other place has experienced this, and we'll pull through it sooner or later.
Most of what is recovered in the creative industry, most of the income goes to pirates. So if everything, or at least most of it, goes to the people who actually own these intellectual properties, if everything comes to the producers of this projects, then of course we'll have more money coming into the industry.
All right, thank you very much, dear Ngozi Chude, for that background report. Now we have guests with us here in the Abuja studios. to elaborate on the issues pertaining to the creative industry ahead 2017. First, at this time, we'd like to welcome the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Alhaji Lai Mohammed, a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and then also with us here in the studios is Chief Tomi Akimbogun. He's President, Federation of Tourism Associations of Nigeria, as well as former President, Hotel Owners Forum. Chief Akimbogun, a pleasure to have you on the program.
A pleasure.
All right. We're going to have, by the way, other guests who will join us in the course of the conversation from a remote location at network centers. But let's begin this conversation with the Honorable Minister in charge of Information and Culture. 2016, no doubt, was a very busy year for you. There were various reports indicating your engagements with actors and participants in the creative industry. Now, from your interactions with various stakeholders, what were your major takeaways? And then what were your major inputs in seeking to move the industry forward in 2016 before we start talking about the prospects for 2017?
Well, I think the first thing I tried to do was to understand first the industry. And after understanding the industry, to see what are the challenges the industry is facing. And over the years, with interaction, over the last 12 months, with interaction with stakeholders, both local and international, partner and the international partners, we've come to identify about 6 major, challenges that the industry is facing. And when we talk about creative industry, we talk not just about music or films, it's about music, films, theater, books, interior decoration, anything that is the product of intellectual, intellectual endeavor. One of the major problems, confronting the industry is what is, commonly referred to as piracy. And what is piracy? Piracy means illegal reproduction or copying of intellectual property-based products. Over the years, systemic failures and our inability to enforce the laws have made it impossible for artists, musicians, filmmakers, people engaged in the creative industry to actually take the most out of their endeavors. And this is because as a result of this lack of enforcement, people were reluctant to invest in the industry because they were not sure of what would be their return on investment. So this has actually affected both the conditions of the artists and at the same time of the industry. Second thing we were able to find out is that skills, that there's a weak skills and educational structure all over. Creative skills like arts, like music, are not even taught in many secondary schools. And even where they are taught in higher institutions, the curriculum is outdated. There's really no linkage between what is taught and the outside world. And we believe that these are areas that, we need to improve, we need to grow upon. Again, another thing that is, militating against the industry is the issue of infrastructure. There's a weak infrastructure throughout the entire industry. By infrastructure, we're talking about, production studios, we're talking about theaters, we're talking about festivals, we're talking about platforms where creative digital products, can be undertaken. We're talking about platforms through which we can even have new talents discovered. So generally, there's a lack of, infrastructure. Then there's issue of information. There's little or no information about the industry. And you see, when you don't have information and you don't have data, it does not attract investors. For instance, people put various figures as to the worth of the industry today. Some will tell you the industry is worth 3 trillion. Some will say the industry is worth, $1 billion. There's actually really no data, no information. And without data and information, people cannot make wise business decisions. So that again has affected, the industry. And then of course the issue of lack of, access to finance. You see, for all the reasons that I've listed above, the industry is suffering from investor readiness or investor attraction. The average businessman would want to know how much he's going to make. That if he invests $1 billion today in the industry, in the production of films, how much will he make in 5 years' time? And then this lack of information again is not even helping artists, because the artists themselves do not even know the opportunities that are banned in their industry. These are some of the issues that we have identified as militating against the industry. However, the bright side is that despite all these challenges, the Price Waterhouse report has said that in 2015 that the entertainment and media industry in Nigeria is the fastest growing in the world. And what we've done as a ministry is that after we've examined these challenges, we have been able to develop both short-term and long-term solutions, approaches that will rectify some of these, that will address some of these challenges. In the short term, we've succeeded with our collaboration with international agencies, both locally, at international and local agencies, to address the issue of capacity building, to address the issue of platform. As of today, we have signed 2 MOUs, one with the British Council and the other with the Tony Elumelu Foundation. British Council, MOU, it will enable us by 2017, January this year, to train festival managers, both privately funded and publicly funded, festivals. This will allow our festivals to adopt business model forms. It will make them more profitable. It will be able to, they will be able to build audiences, able to build markets. Because festivals is not just about dancing and singing or relaxation. Festival is also serious business. Also this year, we are, with the help of the British Council, we are embarking on a program where we are going to do a mapping of the entire, creative industry in Nigeria. By mapping, we mean we're going to be able to say, look, if you go to, Kebbi State, these are the prevalent, creative industry. If you go to Osun, this is it. This will now make it easier for us. Our intervention will now be quite, will be possible and easier. And of course, we are with Tony Elumelu Foundation, which again is quite significant because this is a local, foundation. What they are offering us is that they've realized that for a very long time, the creative industry does not understand the private business, private economy. Private economy too, private funds does not understand the creative industry. So what they are doing is to help us put together a platform whereby the talented creative artists will intermingle and interact with the private sector. For the first time in Nigeria today, we are trying to invite non-artists to drive the industry. I'm talking about investors, funds managers, lawyers, and businessmen to come into the industry. So this and all this will take place in 2017 first quarter.
All right, thank you very much, Honourable Minister. A lot of talking heads you have raised here now that will continue to talk on as the program progresses. But then Chief Tommy Akingbogbo, the Honourable Minister just said something now that even the people within the industry need to understand the industry. From the point that he has highlighted now, it's obvious that this administration has the right disposition towards the industry. But then the people who are in the industry, do they have the same disposition?
The problem, like he identified, actually, if we go further back within the family, if you look at the traditional practitioners, carvers, artists, cultural practitioners, the masquerades and all that, you find out that there has been a kind of break in transmission, that is, in handing over cultural heritages in families. So you find that a family that is usually known for, I remember the event that we had, the Nigerian Tourism Investors Forum, an exhibition that Federation of Tourism had, and we wanted authentic masquerades to display. It was quite difficult for us because we found over time the modern religion has actually broken the patronage of our cultural practices. For example, most of our cultural practices are kind of labeled negatively in the modern religious practices. And there has not been a custodian that promotes the development or continuity of these cultural practices. So you find that those who have that skill, by the time they get old, they are unable to transfer. Their children are not interested. They're now welders and Okada riders and all that. So you find that even within the family that has these unique cultural practices, there's already a break in handing over, because most of our practices actually are oral, and the culture is actually imbibed in you because you grow into the trade of your family, the cultural practices. So, and then he also did mention about the control of intellectual properties and all that. Over time, we have really done a lot in achieving a reduction in the copyright control, and I mean the infringement in copyright. But we have not spent enough energy to promote the sales of what we are protecting. And that's why we have the artists, the young artists in Nigeria. I mean, Nigerian artists are welcome, our music and everything is doing very well. But you find that at the root, the young artist actually has no platform to grow. We're only getting very tiny percentage of the talents coming out. Like he said, we need to have businessmen, because if you're an artist, you don't necessarily have to be a businessman. But let a businessman identify. But how can a businessman identify a talented person unless there's a platform for him to display his skill? That means we must, at the local government level, have small programs, just like we're doing for football. At the local government, we need to have small programs that will identify the talents. And then the states level, we have programs. And then the national level, then we can now say, well, these are the young, upcoming artists. And the businessman will be able to identify, and it's ready. The private people, we are ready to make money. It's only, but the artists, because if you are a very, very good artist, you are so imbibed in your practice, you don't want any distraction of naira and kobo, dollar or anything, but you need someone to honestly sell you, because you are a product.
That's why they have business managers.
Oh, yes.
I was going to say, Chief Akingbogbo, just the point that you're elaborating on is the next question I was going to ask you. That's to say, let's establish a nexus between the creative industry and tourism, on the basis of what the Honorable Minister has already explained. When you see the challenges in the creative industry, how have these challenges impacted the tourism? Say, for instance, in staging cultural festivals, in staging musical festivals, as well as the business opportunities that have been missed, and how might this be bridged?
Well, we can always improve on whatever we have on ground. Definitely, like I was saying, also, it's only when we are able to show what we have that the buyer will come for it. And then we also have to create a forum, because we are lucky in Nigeria, we have the population, 160, 170 million people. And that is a massive market.
Mm.
But if you look, how many museums do we have for the carvers to display? How many shows, fashion shows, do we have? We can have fashion shows every day of the week. If you look at the quality, the creativity of our people. Mm. Is it the traditional woven handbags and the shoes that we're seeing? Or is it the hairdo? The beads. Oh, you know more. You see, so we can actually have one every day of the week for the whole year. Mm. Even just to talk about fashion. Of course, there is a lot of cost.
Big an intervention here. You see, I spoke about lack of infrastructure. Mm. This infrastructure are not just roads. I'm not talking about roads. I talk about studios. Yeah.
Theaters.
I talk theaters. I even talk about festivals. Yeah. Festivals are where you actually, you not only showcase your culture, you also unite the people. But at the same time, you find, you discover new talents. So I agree with you. It's part of the infrastructure, but more important is that you see, when you look at a musician, a filmmaker, it's like a footballer. Mm. He has just raw talent. He doesn't have the managerial skill. He doesn't have the business skill. And that is why you see a footballer, he has a manager, he has a coach, he has a therapist, he has, a financial advisor. And this is what we intend to do by the creation of this task force on the creative industry, of which, I've contacted you already, and you have accepted to serve.
We have a task force on the creative industry.
Oh, yes.
Honorable Minister, we'll come to that so that you give us details of what the task force is going to achieve, or is intended to achieve, particularly as we'll be looking ahead into 2017. Just to indicate that we have two other guests who will be joining us now from our Lagos Network studios. We had said that we'll be having guests join us. First, we'd like to welcome Bolanle Austin Peters, a movie maker and founder of Terra Culture, as well as co-producer of the runaway success movie, 93 Days. Austin Peters, a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We also have in the Lagos studios another very well-known face, Tony Okoroji. He's a musician, a former president, Performing Musicians Association of Nigeria, PMAN. Mr. Tony Okoroji, a pleasure to have you joining us today on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Tony Okoroji, I'm sure you've been listening to the Honorable Minister. He spoke extensively on areas, the challenges of this industry. Infrastructure is one, and just recently he was just talking about creating a platform where we can actually get to discover these talents, from the grassroots festivals. What's your take on that?
First, I'd like to say that we have made progress to the fact that the Honorable Minister is live on TV, and we are having these discussions because for so many years, some of us have said that this is an area where our nation has great comparative advantage, and we just didn't use the advantage. But oil has gone and is not likely to come back, and we must tap on the resources, the intellect of our people, and use that now to drive the Nigerian economy. So I want to commend the Honorable Minister, who will tell you that we have engaged him. What in football you call giving somebody, or in music you say bumper to bumper. That's what we have done with the Honorable Minister, and I'm happy that we're having some of these discussions. For me, the real thing is how we change our mindset. Our mindset must change. Our understanding that the economy around the world has changed tremendously, right? Everybody now has a cell phone, a smartphone. For a lot of young people, all that cell phone, all that smartphone is what they eat. The content in it is what they eat. We need to provide the content in all that smartphone to feed all those people. There are kids who don't remember breakfast or lunch. All they remember is what is happening on new media, on social media. We need to feed that, and we have the capacity. We have the people who can sing, who can dance, who can create programs, who can do incredible fashion, who can design incredible houses. Nigeria has them, but we need to place value on those things. Our music still, our people think it ought to be free. Everybody should get music for free. Everybody should go to a show that has cost a lot of money to put together for free. Everybody should watch a movie for free. These things cost money, and that mindset we need to change. Once we change that mindset, this will boom. The investors will come, the managers you talk about. You can't ask a young boy to go and hire a manager and an accountant and blah, 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 blah. Where is the money to pay them? So it's a circle, but let's stop talking, let's start doing. I'm ready to do. Honorable Minister, I've said to you over and over again, people like us don't like talk. We like to get these things done. Thank you so much.
All right, Chief Tony Okoroji, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in the course of this conversation, particularly with regard to the point you just made about changing the mindset of both stakeholders and consumers of the works of creative artists. Now, just with you there is the lady I introduced a moment ago, that's Polanle Austin Peters. Austin Peters, you listened again to the guests, both with you there in Lagos as well as in the Abuja studios. 2016. What has this meant to you as a participant in the industry? Are you satisfied that right now we're probably trying to find a way out of the thicket that has often surrounded the creative industry in the country?
Absolutely. The reality is that for us, in our situation at TerraCulture, and obviously those in the industry that we're in, I think things moved forward in 2016, and I think that it was partly due to the fact that we really don't have a choice anymore. Like Mr. Okoroji just mentioned, the oil industry that we all so heavily relied on has sort of like dried out. So we're all being forced to look inwards, to tap into our creative energies. We at TerraCulture for 13 years have been preaching this gospel, and I think finally it's catching up with the rest of Nigeria. The fact of the matter is, intellectual property and creative energy in Nigeria is unbelievable. The youths are highly talented, but we need to harness all of these skills. And if we recognize that today, the world over, it is those with creative knowledge that rule the world, from your Zuckerbergs to all your Bill Gates. Yes. These are people who have used their creative knowledge to produce invaluable intellectual property for themselves. And if Nigeria considers the fact that we have we have a massive youth population, we can tap into that energy and ensure that these people get the jobs that they require, and also that we put Nigeria on the international platform with our arts and culture. Like I said, at TerraCulture, for the first time in Nigeria's history, I believe, we took a Nigerian musical to London's West End. It was very well received, and what was interesting about that also was that it showcased our culture, and people all over the world began to recognize the Nigerian culture, and our art is sellable. And we are in the business of doing art. We're not, it's not a charitable venture, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that people need to understand that it's called show business for a reason. It is business. And for as long as we continue to think this is a hobby, we're not going to make significant progress. So we see it as a business. The same thing we did with 93 Days, the movie that we took out. We went to Chicago Film Festival. We were in Toronto. We're going to the LA Film Festival as well. That suggests that Nigerian movies also have moved on, and the international community is beginning to recognize the value and the relevance of our craft.
Thank you very much, Bolanle, Austin Peters. Thank you for your contributions then. But then let's get back to the Honourable Minister. Kingsley was saying earlier that he would like to actually speak on the task force that you were talking about. But while you do that, there was a recent movie screening you attended, My Name is Cardi, where you said that this industry has the potential to take the country out of recession. But then as you went ahead to commend them, you also said that there needs to be a regulatory framework. And you said that there were about 168 guilds alone just in the motion picture. But one way that government can actually help them is if it's regulated. What is being done in that area?
Well, I think we make substantial progress in that area. Earlier in my assumption of office, I met stakeholders in the industry, and we tried to get a draft bill, what we call MOPICON. MOPICON is the Motion Pictures Practitioner Council of Nigeria, which is fashioned along the same lines as the APCON, which is supposed to be a regulatory body for the industry. It determines who is a motion picture producer, what are his duties, obligations, but it's not as if we want to regulate. No, it's a body that is going to make sure that quacks are not don't present themselves as members of the industry. And the beauty of it is that we set up a committee to review these documents. This document had been going forward and backward for more than 6-7 years. This time around, we got the stakeholders themselves to set up their own committee. I think the only government representative was the secretary in a committee of about 30-40 people. So today we have a clean copy of what they want that bill to be, and that bill is going to go to the Executive Council, and then it will now go to National Assembly. That's one of the things we want to do to ensure that we have a body that we can talk to. Because recently we had some opportunities. I think an American company working closely with the Office of the Vice President wanted to train 3,000 Nigerians in the film animation, and we did not know where to turn to. If we have MOPICON, we would have turned to them. Now, yes, it is true that I said this industry, the creative industry is capable of taking us out of a recession. But again, there must be certain things put in place. See, the creative industry thrives on 3 pillars. There's the creative industry itself, which are the artists, the talented people. There's also the government. There's also the private sector. See, the government must make available the enabling environment. And I spoke about infrastructure, for instance. People talk about piracy, especially in the film industry. Why is piracy, so bad today? It's because we don't have, among other reasons, we don't have enough cinema houses. In the U.S., there are 14 cinema houses to every 1 million people. In Nigeria, we don't even have 50, cinema houses for a population of 170 million. So the moment you have film houses, then a producer will make a film and will make his money within a short period. That's what they call box office. But today what do? We make films because there are no cinema houses. We make films for the pirates. Now, so that's one of the things we're trying to do. We must encourage, more film houses. And how are we doing this? We are also taking to the National Assembly a revised national endowment for the arts, which will allow for, some form of grants for up-and-coming artists. But I think another thing that happened, which is going to change the entire industry, is the digitization, program, which we launched in Abuja yesterday. Because with the digitization program, we are now providing a platform for film producers to release their films and musicians to release their records straight to these platforms without going through, DVDs or CDs. You can, like I said yesterday, you can imagine if a film is released today, and by Monday it is in, 20 homes, because with the digitalization project, program, and our, set-top box, there's going to be, video on demand or film on demand. All you need is just to push of the button. You can buy this film, and that's going to help to fight piracy. But I like the issues raised by both Bolanle and Tony, in the sense that we must change our perception. But it goes, beyond that. I think we must start to introduce our younger ones to appreciate the creative industry. Remember, I said at the beginning that even the skills, system is very weak. You see, it's only when you introduce the young ones at a very early stage to understand, to appreciate the creative industry. That is when you are even going to help them, not just to, be able to understand and know who they are, but they will be able to take interest in the creative industry. For instance, today, we need to do more to expose our children to musical, to concerts, expose them to cultural activities, expose them to visual arts, expose them to photography. From there, kids can also pick, the areas of interest. But yes, I agree with them. Show business it takes a lot of investment. I was in London with the Bolan Peters to watch the Waka Musical. It was a runaway success. But I also saw the amount of investment that came into it. Flying that crew alone to London, sustaining them for almost 2 weeks, it's huge. And this is, I think, where both what I spoke about before, that the creative industry today is not just about the artists. It's about a business, and we need this platform I was talking about, which is the task force on the economy, that would marry that will facilitate the growth by letting the business sector get interested and get more involved in that and more ready to invest in the industry. But of course, for that to happen, I've also told you, we need information.
That's right.
We need data.
Honourable Minister, those are some of the challenges you earlier highlighted.
Yes.
We'll come back to you. Let's return very quickly now to our Lagos network studios, Chief Tony Okoroji as well as Bolanle Austin Peters. Two or three of the challenges that the Honourable Minister indicated with regard to the creative industry. One, poor skill set, which is just elaborated on. Persons do not appear to have the right skills, inadequate infrastructure, as well as absence of reliable data. Now, let's begin with the skill set. In your opinion, what is required for us to begin to infuse the appropriate skill set in different aspects of the creative industry, different from what Chief Akingbogu has said earlier? In the past, we had our usual socialization process. A child watches the father or watches the parent, who was a craftsperson, and then learn the skills. But now, elevating it, what is required to be done? You find challenges with our curriculum? Or do you find challenges with the proper investment in the creative arts by way of training? Or we need, if you like, schools that, music schools, acting schools or theater schools or whatever. Let's begin first with Chief Tony Okoroji, and then Bolanle will take over.
I was listening to the Honorable Minister, and the Honorable Minister will bear me witness that I was in Abuja like 2 weeks ago, and I had a meeting with, I think, 3 different ministers, the Minister of Communication, the Attorney General of the Federation, and amiable Honorable Minister of Information and Culture. And the point is that everybody in government, is just not the Minister of Culture, needs to understand that there is a change, right? For instance, I was saying to the Minister of Communication that when this country licensed the MTNs and the Tisalats and the blah, blah, blah of this world, they were supposed to be delivering voice. But now they have become major pipelines for distributing intellectual property, distributing content. in an completely unregulated atmosphere, which is why we have the schism that we have with them. When you talk about data, let's not beat our country down too much. People in their little ways are doing a lot of things that are not coordinated. For instance, I am chairman of an organization called COSON. We have a database of musical works. We have people who are working there, who have been working there for years, creating this database. So you can plug into it. You don't have to go and start building a brand new database because there is a database that is there. When I hear that there is no data on Nigerian music, I say, who told you there's no data on Nigerian music? When people say to me, we're not monetizing some of this, and I say, oh, COSON has raised close to ₦1 billion, a COSON that I was told a few years ago will never work in Nigeria, and has distributed a lot of that money, you know, to people in the industry. So things are actually working. And when people talk about regulation, I'm the one who says, come again, because in the nature of the world that we have now, anybody can create a program using a cell phone. Anybody can distribute to the world using a cell phone. You need to be careful about the kind of regulation you make that puts people in a box where they can. In fact, I say release all the energy. There's so much energy, you know, but put value to the products. We go out and a Nigerian movie is selling on the streets for how much? Is that the true value of the work that's gone into that? A Nigerian music on a CD is selling for how much? For pennies. That's not the true value. I go outside the country. I go to Ghana, Liberia, Tanzania, everywhere there is Nigerian movies, there's Nigerian music. All of them are pirated. Nobody's paying for it. And I've asked a couple of the ministers, if that was Nigerian oil that was being washed away, wouldn't this country go to war for that? We should go to war. The American nation did not become strong without protecting its content and its intellectual property around the world. Nigeria ought to be able to do that now because that is our oil. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks. As I said earlier, I would like Bolonle or St. Peter to take a look at this. There are a number of challenges, no doubt, but we're taking them one after the other. Weak skill set, for instance. How do we overcome that, Bolonle?
You know, from the practical angle, because we're in the business, what I found out was that the schools, like you rightly pointed out, are not teaching the children what they need to know. So you have dancers and actors that are not particularly skilled. What we need to do is to have institutions that are able to educate and teach these children what to do, what they need to do at the level that they need to be operating. If you look at what we've done with theater, for instance, when we started out, we had very little skill sets, people that were skilled in dance, in choreography, in what do you call it, sound engineering, stage management. But what has happened is over the past 8 years or so, we've begun to develop the skill sets almost in a very ad hoc manner. But what has happened is we're developing a school by ourselves within TerraCulture and also all the other institutions that are promoting the artists. So you can see the difference between those who started out with us 3-4 years ago and the green ones that are coming in again. So we've become a school of some sort. Absolutely. So what we need to do is to ensure that schools actually take on dance, music, photography, all of these skill sets as courses that people can graduate in and have professions in. When we have plays, for instance, you have people who come there, all they want to do is dance. They don't want to be a lawyer, they don't want to be a doctor, they just want to be dancers. So if we had enough dance schools, if we had enough theater schools, if we had enough music schools, we'll be able to produce the quality that we're looking for, even acting schools. So what has happened is, if you look around Lagos today, we have pockets of people doing things independent of government, independent of any form of policy, but they're all adding together to create that critical mass, which is exactly what happened in music.
Yes.
Nobody forced it. The same thing happened in Nollywood.
Yeah.
Nobody forced it. Government didn't force it. It was the individuals that came together, independent of society, and forced the change. But now that we have a responsive government, especially with Minister Lai Mohammed, who is very supportive of this industry and wishes to push it forward, we need to engage and ensure that we begin to put in those schools that can teach our children the skills that they require. Not everybody needs to be a lawyer. Not everybody needs to be I trained as a lawyer. I'm no longer practicing law. And this is a beautiful profession. And we keep talking about perception. We need to understand that there is nothing wrong with this industry. This industry built America. This industry has built Europe. A lot of the people that we all celebrate today, from the Angelina Jolies to the Michael Jacksons, are all creative people. And we need to get involved in that conversation. But the beauty of what has happened in Lagos State today is from all of the different initiatives. Governor Ambode is clearly an art lover. And what they're doing now is they're planning to build theaters all over Lagos. Now, you can imagine what will happen if we had theaters in Lagos, the amount of employment that we're going to generate and create within Lagos State. So we think, I think personally that a lot of private sector initiatives need to come into this sector, as well as government just coming in to ensure that we get that visibility, which is what we're doing here this morning. Get that visibility out there, change the perception. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this industry, and the practitioners are as gifted and experts as the bankers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bolanle Austin Peters. So we'll get back to you in just a moment. But then I'd like Chief Tommy Akingbogu to also speak to this, because that was the second point that the minister highlighted when he began, weak skill sets and the need for schools to be created where people can just go and learn these things.
Definitely, yes. I totally agree with that. But the base that we need is actually access to affordable funds, because investors, I mean, to even have a good school, the theaters and all these establishments requires a lot of money, and private investors, of course, are even ready. Like Bolanle is a private investor, and you can see how far they've taken their practice. But the access to fund for the young artists is a major problem. The minister did say there will be some grants. We always say grants don't go far. But we have been asking the minister, which we've been discussing with, that we should have a tourism bank. If we have a tourism bank, then they will map out any area, because even the music industry has its own tourism traffic that goes with it. The film industry has its own tourism. Even the Fela Shrine alone, people travel from all over the world to just take a look and say, Fela lived here. So what we need is access to long-term funds and at an affordable rate. That's number one. Number two, we also...
Who are the we now?
The industry.
The industry, well, the tourism industry, overall, look at the tourism industry. Now, if we have access to funds, then government policies will say, okay, from this data, we have XYZ areas, number of hotels, number of theaters, we need museums in these areas. And then they can now say, with this, if we have the tourism bank, we can then have a differential interest rate that will encourage more investors to move into specific areas. That's, that access to fund is very, very essential. And then, then naturally, if you have 3% for educational, 5% for the museum itself or the theater itself, you find that more people will go into the educational, and immediately it is balanced. You use the tourism bank fund to actually balance that out. The issue we've always said is when we have a bank, the fund itself is self-generating, because like we all agree that it's business, and when it's a business, you have an interest rate that is below 10%, and then you take your loan, you have, if secured, you return back the loan, and then definitely it's available for another generation of artists to have access to it. But if it's a grant, it has kind of like an end to it. So I agree that we need to invest in the educational system, but we need also a very strong body that will also have the economic view, overall economic view of the growth. Because as we're talking on TV now, the typical thing is, okay, tourism is going to, under the Creative Act, tourism and all that, will be the next stage for Nigeria to go. Now, the thing is, because we don't have the right information for those who are the custodians of this creative arts, the local government officials, for example. All they need now is, oh, we can't get money from federal government because there's no oil. Now people are talking about tourism, creative arts, the artifacts, the cravats and all that. The next thing is massive taxation on the small-scale industry. Thereby, even before the industry grows, it's killed. So we need to have a controlling body that will have the overall view of how far are we in the master plan.
Would it help, for instance, if a matter of this nature were taken to the National Economic Council, where you have, of course, the federal government officials, is headed by the vice president, and the state governors, who can then interface with local governments with regard to what to do, essentially, with the creative industry. That's Chief Tommy Akingbogu. Thank you very much for your views. Just to indicate that we have reactions already coming in from our viewers who have taken advantage of the Twitter handle. You see it on the left side of your screen at NTA GMA. We take those tweets right now and continue with the conversation. Jetta, this is his first tweet, says, Honorable Minister should reconcile the two factions of AGN to bring unity to Nollywood before Mopicon for more progress in the industry. Once again, reconcile two factions of AGN to bring unity to Nollywood before Mopicon come out for more progress in the industry.
And same Jetta also tweets, the Nollywood is going Western and abandoning our cultural content. There should be a reorientation.
And Festus Akimboye, now creative industry is currently the fastest growing sector of our economy and can provide thousands of jobs for our young people if well funded.
And Haruna Ishak tweets, please ask the Honorable Minister, why is it that the only institute for hospitality and tourism has no capacity to give out even a national diploma?
And Bright Irene tweets, Honorable Minister, as Information Minister, how does your ministry assist in terms of energy lacking in the industry?
And Sani Michael Mokoji tweets, give them power, I mean electricity, that will stimulate the economy. No industry thrives in the situation as such.
All right, then we have this at Malam_MB, that's the Twitter handle. Of course, he writes, people have formed the habit of avoiding cinema houses. How are you going to make our film houses interesting if re-established? Those are the tweets that we're taking in the meantime. A number of questions there for the Honorable Minister. I'm sure, Honorable Minister, you take your notes so that you can respond when we come back to it. I just wanted Chief Tony Okoroji again to speak to this aspect. That's the aspect of the infrastructure deficit in the creative industry, which the minister already identified as one of the challenges. Bolonle seated beside you there says, look, Lagos State government is setting out to do this, building theaters, but the minister also identified production studios and, of course, the full complement that you need for the creative industry. Do stakeholders, or let's say participants, or key actors in the creative industry recognize that these are business opportunities that they could sell to investors and translate them into bankable projects?
I agree that we need infrastructure, no question about that, but infrastructure, of course, has changed. You have digital studios now that don't cost like studios used to cost. So that, is not an incredible problem. I am happy that finally the Honorable Minister is taking the situation of the National Endowment for the Arts very seriously. There's certain aspects of the arts that are business. There are other aspects of the arts that you can't turn into Naira and Kobo. For instance, when somebody was trying to, make the National Theatre a commercial destination, I said, no, you can't do that. You can't make the National Assembly a commercial enterprise, or also Rock a commercial enterprise. Some of these things are built to help the nation find its meaning, and in finding that meaning, a nation moves forward. The interconnectivity between what the art does, how that, turns out into tourist, achievements, turn out to, economic achievements. Those are the things we all need to establish and understand. That some of these things on the short run might not look to you like they are making money or making national statements. But if you check where they have happened in other countries, take France, for example. France is a country that funds the creative areas, because it understands that there's a network. There's some interconnectivity between what happens in these areas and what the national economy and the progress of the country becomes at the end of the day. And we need to understand this at the policy level. And this conversation is sweet for me. It's very, very sweet. I like it because finally we're getting, but I beg the Honorable Minister, sir, we have talked to, we started talking about the National Endowment for the Arts 20-something years ago. 20-something years ago. We've been talking about private copy levy for 20-something years. This is the time to start doing things because the Nigerian young people are upset. And I think all of us need to understand that they're upset. And if we have to deal with Boko Haram and all the restiveness across the country, we have to give them a purpose. We have to give them something to do. And this is the time to give them something to do. So, Honorable Minister, if you are ready to work, we are ready to work. But if you are ready to talk, I'll say to you, sir, bye-bye, because I don't want to be there when the stones start coming. Thank you.
Well, Chief Tony Okoroji, thank you very much. You say that this is very sweet for you. It's your appetizer for Christmas, by the way. Just Bolale or St. Peters, what's your reaction to this in terms of getting infrastructure? You talked about the Lagos State government building theaters. We all know, I don't want to raise the argument now of government business not being in business, but how else would you like to see this done? Production studios and all the other full complements. That's one leg of the question. Second leg is, the Minister and then Chief Okoroji himself talked about the National Endowment for the Arts. How would you like to see that funded?
Okay, the thing is, all over the world, as has been pointed out earlier, the arts are typically funded by grants and endowments from government and wealthy philanthropists. In Nigeria, unfortunately, we don't have that situation. So what tends to happen is people like ourselves who choose to be daring and take risks, just go into this hoping, like I said, that we'll lay the foundation and eventually reap from it. But the reality is there are some sectors of the industry that has to be funded through grants, no matter how you cut it. In England, they have the Arts Council. They fund a lot of the initiatives that you see in England, the plays, access to a lot of the artistic spaces. And we need to do the same thing here in Nigeria because there's some things that, private sector will just not be able to invest in because it's not profit making. But there is that chicken and egg situation that, you create this infrastructure or this industry, but it has its own potential revenue earning streams on the other side. You might not see it immediately. The benefits are always there, from tourism to people wanting to export your culture, and all of those things all come into play eventually. In terms of creating an endowment fund, I don't know much about endowment funds, but if it is created, I hope that it is managed well and that the recipients are the artists themselves who want to create content. So for me, if it happens and it's in the right hands, why not? But for me personally, because I'm a private sector person, I'm not fond of looking for,
government money.
Government funds. I don't look for it. If it happens, fine. But if it doesn't happen, I think people should just get used to the fact that they have to be in a position where they will generate themselves for themselves an income. But that being said, I keep going back to this point. Philanthropy is a problem in Nigeria. We don't have philanthropists. There are wealthy people out there who can do more for the youth. A lot of them can build galleries. A lot of them can build dance studios. It costs nothing. I am doing it, and honestly, I'm not rich. If I'm able to create a theater that is a 500-seater theater, how much more the wealthy individuals in Nigeria? If you look at what has happened, even with the universities in America, it was built through the generosity and the largesse of wealthy individuals. And we need our wealthy individuals to start understanding that they need to invest back in this country. They need to create all of these facilities that will allow our youths to get employed. So if we have people who have the resources and all their monies are being kept in banks or in foreign accounts, I don't know who is fooling who. We're fooling ourselves. Because if you look at the example of terraculture today, we have people whose kids have trained abroad, from the Columbias to the Yale, coming to work for us. And they studied theater arts, but there is no theater in Nigeria to perform. They studied music, but we don't have the infrastructure to support what they've learned in school. So a lot of these people need to start understanding that they also have to invest in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bolanle Osting Peters. I'd like the Honourable Minister to also speak to these issues she has raised, the endowment fund and having to get wealthy Nigerians to invest in this industry.
Frankly speaking, I can't agree more with Bolanle that our philanthropists should show more interest in leaving legacies behind rather than stacking their money in Swiss banks. See, look at the museums in the US, in Europe. They are mostly privately funded museums. Here, we have only very few privately funded art galleries and museums. So this is why I keep saying that, you see, the private sector, the public, the government, and the industry, the artists, we all have a role to play. So I agree with Bolanle that our people should look beyond, building houses. Those houses, if you build 1,000 houses in Nigeria today, when you die, nobody except your family will remember you for those houses. But if you build an art gallery, or you build a theater, or you build, or invest in museums, your name will live forever. I hope our, philanthropists will listen to this. I want to, comment on a few issues raised by Mr. Chief Tony Okoroji. And I think these are issues that he raised when he came to see me, and we thrust them out. Now, he talked about the Private Levy Act. The truth of the matter is that today, with digitalization, the Private Levy Act is a bit not practicable, especially today when most of the platforms we are using are actually digital platforms. Now, what we need to do, and I told Chief Okoroji, we need to talk more, because this is a very dynamic industry, where we need to sit together and see, with the technology, how do we make sure that we are able to be abreast of issues. He spoke about, piracy. Yes, I've talked about piracy, music here and there. It's true, but you must also recognize that there are few of our artists too who encourage piracy, who will smuggle and encourage pirates to play their music abroad, because they believe that way it gives them, publicity, it gives them, visibility, and then from there they can lead to being invited abroad. Now, these are issues that we discussed. Then the issue of telecommunication company, you cannot run away from the fact that the telecom companies have come to stay. And they're not just there for voice and data alone, no. But what we need to do is more consultation between all the stakeholders. What is happening today is that the telecoms company is not just all evil. There are many musicians today whose tunes are long forgotten, but for the telecoms company that have brought them alive, and they're making a little, bit of money. Then, but in business, it's your power to negotiate that is very important. And this is why I keep talking about, we must look at this industry as if it's an industry solely controlled by the musicians, by the filmmakers, or by the theater practitioners. No, this industry in Nigeria, in the world today, is controlled by financiers, it's controlled by lawyers, it's controlled by funds people. And this is the essence of the task force I'm talking about. The Chief Akibogu talked about taxation and this. Yes, one of the things the government is doing is we have this council, which we call the Council on the Ease of Doing Business. And the whole idea is to make Nigerian businesses attractive and avoid overtaxation, avoid things that will make our industries not to be attractive. So the government has taken that very much on board. But the government has a lot to do, no doubt. But the important thing is that we must start engaging one another. We must start talking to one another. All over the world, this industry has always been built on the cooperation between government and the private sector.
And that's why you're talking about the new business model for the industry.
Absolutely.
Could you speak more on the task force? What do you expect it to achieve, and what will be, how will it be populated, and what will be its mandate?
Well, the task force we're talking about is going to be a platform that for once will make it possible for the private sector, the creative industry, and the regulator, which is government that provides them the enabling environment, to see and talk together on the same platform. And this has never existed before. And I'm happy to say that, interestingly, everybody on this platform, both Paul Austin Peters, Antonio Okoroji, and Chief Akingbogun have accepted to serve on that task force. And it's a task force with a difference, because I think of about 25 people, I think only 4 are from government. It's going to be co-chaired by me and Tony Elumelu. And we have there the major stakeholders in the music, in film, in theater, in photography, in visual arts. But we also have lawyers, we have funds managers, we have financiers who have accepted to serve, and we also have UNDP, we have the World Bank, and the UNDP has accepted to serve on it. We are contacting the World Bank and the technology firms also, because we know that in these days businesses are driven by technology and funds manager. And so this is the kind of task force we work, we're trying to talk, we're trying to put together. I just want to also address the issue raised by Chief Akingbogun on the issue of the fact that we have been unable to pass on the tradition from father to son. This is why the capacity building is very important. And I explained that part of the things that the British Council has offered to do with us is to actually to train, to boost capacity capacity in the area of culture. But and I think also the Tony Elumelu Foundation has agreed also every year to mentor, sponsor, and monitor about 100 young people who have taken creative industry as a business. So we on our part, we realize that you cannot do this alone with government. You must link up with the private sector. And this is why we are calling more on the philanthropists to please come and join us. Let people take the example of Tony Elumelu, for instance, and sponsor the arts.
The Nigerian Bank was supposed to actually, manage a multi-billionaire support fund then for the creative industry. Is that still being pursued?
No, I think I must not fail to commend the Bank of Industry. Bank of Industry has done a lot to help the industry, the creative industry. And while we're at it, I think there was a bill that I think suffered some setback, which was sponsored by Senator Gianni Solomon of Lagos State on the Tourism Support Fund. I've been able to contact him to see where to start again, because we understand that everywhere in the world, tourism is subsidized. You cannot have tourism without subsidy. And what is subsidy we're talking about? Talking about infrastructure. If you have regular power, good roads, a good network of railways, of course, it's easier for the hotelier, it's easier for the practitioner.
Honorable Minister, what's your reaction to the tweet asking you to reconcile two factions of AGN to bring unity to Nollywood before Mopicon, according to...
Well, like I said, one of the problems in the industry is that there are too many chiefs, no Indians. Everybody wants to be a president, everybody wants to be chairman, and some of these issues are actually in court. We try to persuade them to let us resolve these matters amicably. I think only on this week I had to speak to the Attorney General and the Minister of Labour and Employment that we should please set up a tripartite meeting and invite all the contenders of PMAN, because PMAN is also suffering the same factionalization. And every day you see them saying president is a robber, the other one is a rogue. But I think these are issues that we want to resolve, but it will take a bit of time.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We'd like to take some of the tweets we're also still getting. This one is from Wilson Gosson. He said, it's not enough to talk about creativity. Government should be serious about protecting the creative content.
And then we have this from Francis Jethro. Nigeria has massive youth numbers in the creative industry, and I think it's one of the platforms which can help the youth to achieve their goals. Federal government prioritize it, please.
And this one is from Festus Akingboyewa. He says, the music, fashion and films are being recognized across the globe. Government must continue to provide the right environment for it to thrive.
And then we have this from Clifford Agugoese. He says the ministry, obviously referring to the Ministry of Information and Culture, must not rely on phony consultants to do the mapping of the creative industry. Traditional rulers should serve as guides.
And this one is from Haruna Ishak. He tweets, tourism is one of the ways for poverty eradication, but yet most of our state governments do not develop their tourism sector.
And then this from Ojo Laito. It says, what are the solutions to this? And they list the challenges: high exchange rate, lack of capital, electricity, copyright, and the like that facing the creative industry. I'm sure, of course, the various guests on the program have been speaking to some of these issues and what is required to be done. But just to go over now to our Lagos Network Center to get the closing thoughts of our guests before we come back to Abuja here to get the closing thoughts of Chief Akimbogun as well as the Honorable Minister. Chief Tony Okoroji as well as Bolale Austin Peters, looking ahead into 2017, do you find low-hanging fruits, or do you think that these are matters indicating what the minister has said, a task force rolling out, endowment, for the arts and so on and so forth, a more creative industry, a creative industry that is raking in money and contributing much more to our GDP? What is your prognosis for 2017?
From me, I'm looking at a very bright 2017. In fact, I'm probably one of the few people who's happy that oil had to crash, because for once, Nigerians are now asked, to lay emphasis on making money rather than sharing money. So I'm happy that we are now able to think. I've spoken extensively with the Honorable Minister. He's one of the few ministers in the history of the Nigerian government that will call you practically every day and raise issues with you. I give that to him. The phone rings, and who is on the phone is the Minister of Information. Before now, ministers were too big. You can't touch them. So I commend him for that. And I've never asked him for a contract, so it has nothing to do with any of that. I know Chief Akibogu. Sometimes I go to Abuja and I stay in his hotel, and we talk extensively about these issues. Bola, I know, is very, very intense about this. We will not let the government get out of it, because we don't have a choice. We'll put the government's feet to the fire in 2017 and make sure that these things are done. Some of the things we have roadmaps already. We know what to do. If we have people who are engaged. And in 2017, I can promise my colleagues within the creative industry that if we have a chance, we will make sure that things begin to happen, and Nigeria will survive. Nigeria certainly will survive. I came out this morning from a great event at Eco Hotel and Suites in Lagos, the Headies, driven by a young Nigerian called Ayo Animation. Come and see the crowd that was at the Eco Hotel. The amount of money that was made in that hotel yesterday because of Ayo's Headies is incredible. I mean, last week you had NMVA done by Kali Ikpe. The minister was at the Afrima event. These things are pushing thousands of people to support infrastructure, tourism industries, hotels, and all that. We just need to continue to do this and do it at a bigger scale. Thank you so much.
All right, Balala, let's get your closing thoughts as well on 2017.
2017 will be even greater than 2016. The potential for the industry is immense. From the movie industry, if you look at what has happened in 2016 with the likes of 76 and 93 days being taken to film festivals all over the world, there'll be even better movies coming out, hopefully, going forward. You also know of the record-breaking ones in Nigeria, the local cinemas as well. So I think things will be brighter in that particular sector. Also in theater, with our productions and a lot more productions going on now with the theaters coming on, we'll have a lot more kids employed in theater practice. And visual arts is taking off. We all know what has happened with our visual arts, our auction houses, as well as the arts that we take abroad now. Nigerian art is beginning to command a lot of response abroad as well. So I also see things getting better. But locally, generally, I think that with the visibility that the minister is giving to this sector, and I think it's very critical, like Mr. Okoroji said, that we should commend his efforts simply because he's accessible. You call him, he picks up, he calls you, he wants to get your ideas on issues. And I think that's the only way we can move forward if those in government engage those who are practically involved in any sector. It doesn't have to be the creative sector only. And I think that this is the kind of interactiveness that we require in Nigeria to move the nation forward. One person cannot do it all. So government needs us, we need government, and we all need to work together as a unit. And I do know that from protection of copyright, which is the intellectual content, which everybody is talking about, I do know for a fact that COSON works because they are on my case. When we do our musicals, they're like, we have a new voice for you, Mrs. Austin Peters. So in a lot of ways, Nigeria is working. We just need to all come together and, put all of that energy together into one massive, create a massive bang. And I think that's what's missing. And I hope, hopefully with this task force, I didn't even know the nature of it, with everybody coming together to rub minds, I think that we're going to have a fantastic 2017.
Thank you very much, Bolanle Austin Peters. It's indeed a pleasure talking with you this morning. A movie maker, founder of Terra Culture, and co-producer of the movie 93 Days. We thank you for coming on the program this morning.
For having us.
All right. Thank you also to Tony Okoroji, a musician, former president, Performing Musicians Association of Nigeria. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your time with us this morning.
So much. Thank you to the Honorable Minister and my friend, Chief Akibogu.
Yes.
And this has been a wonderful conversation. I hope we can continue this in the new year. And thank you, NTA, for providing the platform for this.
All right, thank you very much. Very quickly, let's get the closing thoughts of the Honorable Minister. What should we expect to see in 2017?
Well, let me please thank both Tony and Bolanle for their very kind words. I think 2017, by the grace of God, will be much better than 2016. We're going to build on the plannings we've done in 2016. We're going to promote and support more the creative industry. But I can tell you that there are three things that are going to happen in 2017. One, the British Council will, partner with us, and we're going to train several festival managers from both publicly funded, and publicly funded, festivals in Nigeria. Two, 2017 will see a revival of the Argungu Festival. Three, I'm very certain that in 2017 we would also see the takeoff of the task force on creative economy. Because all idea that we want to transit from creative industry to a creative economy. And then I think also, I'm also very confident that the 2017 will see more drive and more favor to address the issue of piracy.
All right, Honorable Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, would like to thank Minister of Information and Culture, by the way. That's double portfolio. We'd like to thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. And then we also would like to thank Chief Tome Akibogu, who is President, Federation of Tourism Associations of Nigeria. Chief, our pleasure having you in our studios today.
All right, it's time now for us to take a break. When we come back, might be able to take our companion segments. Might be.
My community have asked me to be the chairman of their emergency luncheon.
How much of money are you carrying to village? You speak English, you know drop money.
Give us 100 million naira. If you don't have it, go back. Oh.
Flash, what is the name of your village?
Obuama, something like that.
Obama is what you're calling Obama. You're a lost cause.
This week on your award-winning comedy series, Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Wokoye, Funky Malam, Ime Bishop.
I just came in from USA, United States of Aba.
If you was gave me money to palm my head, I was grief for you.
Palm your head.
I was needed to look beautifully. This is Christmas.
I don't have money to palm your head.
Professor John Bull, this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network, International, and Star Times.
Over and out. Welcome to the new speed of life.
Would you like some water? It's cold, especially for you.
Which era are you living in? We have a fridge.
When everything else in your house is from the present, then why are your toilet cleaning methods from the past? Harpic, all-in-one for you. Compared to other toilet cleaners, Harpic removes top stains, kills all germs, and removes bad odors. For a shining, clean, and fresh toilet.
Wow.
You should also take the Harpic
all-in-one challenge.
It's that time of the year when we appreciate all those that meant so much to us. Our sponsors, our clients, government at all levels, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties, business, and above all, you, our esteemed viewer. Together, we made 2016 great. Together, we shall make 2017 even greater. That's why we say thank you. Merry Christmas.
All right, now let's go back to the Weather Center to check out the prospects for the rest of today.
Of the season. Good to see you once again on the weather segment brought to you by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency. It's pretty season we have here, and I'm sure we all are enjoying it as it comes with cool Harmattan breeze to suit the night sleep. And for Friday weather forecast, we expect dust haze in good visibility of about 3 to 5 kilometers over the north down to the central cities. The inland cities of the south will experience sunny and hazy situation during the forecast period. And meanwhile, early morning mist and fog are not unlikely